Good morning. My name is Von Ray, and I would like to share with you some differentiation strategies to use with your students in the classroom. In this presentation, I will share with you 10 differentiation strategies and provide explanations and examples for each. At the end of the presentation, I will share with you some references so that you know where all this material came from. A first strategy is the curriculum differentiation chart. You may be asking yourself, how can I plan a learning task that meets the needs of auditory, visual, kinesthetic, and gifted students? This chart can help with this. The chart is a differentiation strategy to plan for all of your students at the same time in the same place while doing it all in the same document. It includes descriptions of all your learning tasks for these learners. Teachers must know the learning styles of all their students to utilize the strategies. On the right is a framework teachers can use to complete these plans. In the framework, there are 5 columns. The first column, required standard, is where teachers can put the standard they're working on. The next 3 columns address the 3 learning styles. The last column is a space where teachers can add extension activities for gifted students. When designing this chart, teachers should have a list of the standards they are addressing, a product choices chart for each type of learner, and a taxonomy of linking verbs, or thinking verbs. Teachers should work horizontally to complete the chart and include tasks that feature a variety of critical thinking skills. Here's an example of a curriculum differentiation chart from a Civil War and Reconstruction lesson. On the left are the standards. The rest of the columns feature activities for each learning style that vary in critical thinking skills. During the lesson, the teacher would offer students a choice in completing an activity that meets their interests and learning needs. A key question for teachers is, how do the learning tasks in this chart vary for the students based on their learning needs? Interest inventories can be used by teachers to learn more about their students, which can help them differentiate their lessons. Inventories or surveys can be given at the beginning of the year or instructional units. These are used to investigate the interests of students and allow the teacher to take a deeper look with what they know. During design, teachers should be mindful of the language of their questions. The following example is used for students in an 8th grade social studies classroom. Students were asked to complete the questions on an index card. The answers were used to design lesson activities to engage and pique student interest. After completing the survey, I took time to analyze their answers. I looked for patterns and looked for ways that I could use this information to help plan lessons. An example would be if students liked a particular show or book, I would use that excerpt during the lesson. Knowing student interest can help me design instructional activities and projects that pique student interest and keep them engaged. A key question for teachers is, what do you notice about these questions? How would you design questions for your class? Another strategy is a student choice board. If you want to offer students more choice and variety in your lessons, a student choice board is for you. Teachers design options for students that show the mastery of a standard or topic that reflects their learning needs and student interests, such as from a survey. The activity should reflect a variety of critical thinking skills. To aid with design, teachers should have a product choices chart, a taxonomy of critical thinking verbs, and results of their interest surveys. On the right is a possible template. I used this chart, this example chart for extension activities during my Revolutionary War unit. Some key features include student choice with teacher approval option, multiple options based on learning styles for each choice, and higher level thinking activities such as analyze, evaluate, and synthesize. In designing this choice board, I was conscious of learning styles, pre-assessment results, and student interest inventories. In most instances, I would use a choice board with students on a learning contract. In order to meet the needs of all students, I would develop a bank of extension activities to pull from. This would allow more access to content and make learning fit the needs of each student. A key question for teachers is, what activities on this chart stick out to you the most? How would you design a student choice board for your students? Another strategy is the learning contract. These can be used by teachers also to differentiate. Contracts are agreements between the teacher and the student that showcase the learning and activities that the student will complete during the unit. Key components are student name, unit, strengths, areas of interest, learning goals, extended learning experiences, timeline, working conditions, and a space for signatures. Teachers would meet with the student to complete the contract. The contract spells out exactly the work that the student will complete during the unit. This work will be completed during class time and while the teacher is working with other students. The work is designed especially for the student, which matches their individual needs. Students who violate the contract may lose the privilege of working independently or on future contracts. Here's an example of a contract that I used with William Smith. I met with William with a blank template and choice board. During the meeting, we discussed strengths, areas of interest, learning goals, extended activities, timeline, and work conditions. I like the idea of completing the template together with the student because it gives them options in their work and serves with building autonomy in their work. I wouldn't design a learning contract without a student and expect them to just go along without any concerns. William and I would review the contract during teacher check-ins and at the end of the unit to offer each other feedback. A key question for teachers is, what elements do you feel are necessary in a learning contract? The curriculum compactor is a curriculum compacting strategy that allows students who have already mastered content to work on extension activities. Students would not have to complete work that their other classmates would have to complete. They would only have to complete the extension activities that were developed for the unit. Here are the steps in using the compactor. Identify the learning goals and standards that must be mastered. Provide an opportunity for students to examine the content that must be mastered. Step 3, offer a pretest. Step 4, provide extension activities for the student who has tested out of the content. Step 5, eliminate other coursework. 6, decide how you will keep records of student scores and work. 7, design a method for collecting and storing compacted work by the student. On this slide is the compactor template. This document would be completed together by the teacher and with the student, and would provide an agreement similar to a learning contract for the student. The areas of the column that are used are to list the skills that the student is strong at, what they do extremely well. The how the mastery was documented column discusses how mastery was obtained. And finally, the alternate activities column lists the extension activities that the student must complete by the end of the unit. Here's an example on this slide. Elizabeth is a very strong student who has an understanding of directions and finding locations on a map. On her pretest, she earned an A. Since she has mastered the content skill, she will complete the following activities by the end of the unit. Create a country from paper mache, present a report to the class, and consult with other students to help them create their countries. A key question for teachers is, how would students benefit from compacting in your classroom? Another compacting strategy is the study guide strategy, which is another way to differentiate. In this strategy, students do not have to complete all the work that their classmates are completing. These students have already mastered the work and do not need to do busy work or additional practice. They do need to demonstrate mastery of the content through assessments and checkpoints. While the other students are completing coursework, students using the study guide can work on independent assignments or complete extension activities. On the picture template, the student would work on alternate coursework between each checkpoint, and they would complete work between the first two benchmark assessments and complete the rest of the standards or coursework before the end of unit test. In this example on this slide, the student needs to show mastery of the first two content statements on the first benchmark assessment. Next, the student would need to show mastery on content statements 1 through 5 on the second benchmark assessment. At the end of the unit assessment, the student would need to show mastery of all 10 content statements. In between assessments, the student would work on independent study or extension projects. A key question for teachers is, how would you use the study guides in your classroom? Which compacting approach do you prefer and why? Another differentiation strategy is Kaplan's depth and complexity icons. They can be a useful tool to help teachers differentiate critical thinking questions they pose to students. The icons are visual prompts that can be used by the teacher to deepen understanding of a topic. The icons are broken down into two groups, depth and complexity. It is important to remember not to wait around to use these cards for the perfect lesson. Just get started using them. The questions and topics will be new to the students. You could just post the icons around the room beforehand and let students explore. Teachers should have a discussion regarding the icons before using them for the first time. The more the icons are used, the more the teacher and student will be able to use them to dig deeper in discussions. The icons can be put on worksheets that feature questions and prompts from that particular icon. This allows the student to understand the feature skill in an activity. Also, the depth and complexity icons should not be used independently. Teachers should use the icons interchangeably during the lesson to add depth and complexity to a topic. Students will deepen their understanding by having more depth and knowledge to the complex relationships regarding the topic. In this example, I used the icons to design questions for a Socratic seminar. Here the icons, questions for each round, and the possible student answers are listed. The icons allowed the students the opportunity to deepen their understanding of key details and relationships regarding key rights. This discussion provided students the opportunity to share ideas and check their understanding of the topic with the group. While students are required to participate in the seminar, they chose when and where to contribute answers and information. Students were placed in 3 mixed groups based on their learning styles and interest inventories and pre-assessment scores. The students and I have been very successful using these icons for Socratic seminars. The students were highly engaged and enjoyed sharing connections and additional details about the topics. A key question for teachers is, how would you use the icons in your classroom? Service learning projects is another differentiation strategy that can be a wonderful way for teachers to provide learning opportunities for students. These opportunities offer students hands-on experience in practicing utilizing critical thinking skills while offering the community a valuable resource. Teachers can design these inquiry-based projects that allow students to investigate and solve a community problem. The possibilities are endless, and teachers can differentiate all the aspects of the project, including who they work with, the level of independence and support, and choices to share what they have learned, etc. For this project example, students were able to offer improvements and innovation qualities to our community park. Key elements of this project were the exploration of the park, discussion with a park member to share ideas, completing a form that shows their action, working at the park, completing an extension project, which takes a look at other community projects in the area. All along the way, I was able to provide a level of differentiation for each student, including various levels of support and resources. A key question for teachers is, how would you design service learning opportunities for your students? Another differentiation strategy is RAFT, which can help students differentiate their writing. In this, RAFT, which stands for the role of the writer, the audience, the format, and the topic and strong verb. Almost all RAFT writing assignments are written from a viewpoint different from the students to another audience rather than the teacher in a form different than ordinary theme. Therefore, students are encouraged to produce creative thinking and responses that they connect their imagination to newly learned information. On the right is a sample chart that teachers can use to offer their students to vary their writing. Teachers could choose all RAFT components, some of the components, or none of the components of the activity for their students. They could also vary the level of support that students receive. Here's an example that I used in my ELA class. And again, you can see the RAFT components are RAFT. The prompt for this particular activity was, we have just read and discussed The Outsiders. Select a character and an event that they were involved in. Use RAFT and the choice word to provide and reflect on the character's actions. A key question for teachers is, how would students utilize or work with RAFT in your classroom? Scamper is our final differentiation strategy that can be applied to all core content areas. Scamper stands for substitute, combine, adapt, magnify or modify, purpose, eliminate, and rearrange. Scamper is a strategy that can be used to differentiate and adjust current activities. In this example, you can see I used it with my RAFT activity from The Outsiders. With this, you can see that when it comes to substituting, students had to complete the activity with another resource. To combine, at the end, we made a storyboard or newsletter out of all the projects. To adapt, students designed their products using an editorial format. To magnify, all students were creative thinkers that could design all their parts of RAFT. Purpose, students could design alternate projects for other character actions. And E, they could eliminate, have students progress monitor versus the teacher. And rearrange, students completed the activity as if they were the character that was being analyzed. A key question for teachers would be, how would you adjust a current activity with Scamper? The final slide shows all the resources that were provided and all the differentiation strategies in this presentation. Thank you for listening. I hope you learned a lot of strategies today about differentiation.